part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another edition of the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast, powered by MGM Northfield Park, right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Shout out to our fantabulous producer, Ty Courts, making sure you all get this out in the podcatosphere. And Michael Red Guy, what do you know? Another victory for the Cleveland Browns and over the Baltimore Ravens, nonetheless. First time Deshaun Watson has ever defeated the Ravens, and Stefanski was 1-4 against the Ravens prior to that game, and they get a victory. Granted, it was Huntley at quarterback and not Lamar Jackson, but these days the Browns will take a victory any way they can get them, right?
Yeah, no question. And though because of not having to face Lamar Jackson, Kenny kind of felt good about the Browns' opportunities. Certainly it was a defensive-minded football game all the way around, and yet, the Browns got enough, and I thought there was some efficiency by Deshaun Watson in a couple of drives that got them what they needed when, and I will say I thought the play call, because on that touchdown throw to Donovan Peoples-Jones lined up in the backfield, offset. And so if you want to give that to whether it's Kevin Stefanski or Alex Van Pelt, they knew that the Ravens were playing a zone down there in the red zone defensively, lined Peoples-Jones up, and he kind of sifted his way out free with nobody picking him up, and Watson got the football on him. So, we're seeing some good things offensively, and I think we're seeing that Watson is starting to the quarterback draw. It looked like a quarterback draw to me, Kenny. I think it was third quarter, early fourth, a 17-yard quarterback draw. He didn't hesitate. See, these are the kind of things that we expect to inject life into the Browns offense when you have a Deshaun Watson.
Were you expecting him to run more in these first three games, Michael? It's 19 carries in 3 games, 76 yards, no touchdowns. Buddy and I were having a discussion at the bar as we were watching the game. We were saying, all right, are they purposely not running him because they don't want him to get hurt, or he doesn't want to get hurt to finish this season healthy for next year? Or no, they're not purposely not running him. It's just the way that Stefanski's calling the game. Where do you come out on that? Because I can understand if I'm Deshaun Watson, I sat out, 2 years, had an injury, ACL, whatever, and had the suspension and whatnot. I just want to make it through this season healthy, so we're not starting behind the 8 ball to start next season when it really matters.
I don't know. I'm thinking about that, and maybe a touch more, Ken, but, to me, I think they probably were a little bit more determined to make sure that the pass game with him gets, to the point, up to speed with him, and especially with Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and David Njoku, that these guys, because it's different. It's different than on the practice field, Ken. You know that. I mean, you can run all the routes you want in 7-on-7 or even go in 11-on-11. It's not the same thing. So, I just know I think that next year it'll be a much larger part, because he was so good with with his legs and running the football during his time with the Houston Texans. So, yeah, I think as we go along, it'll be a larger part. But I do believe the top priority was really with him and, building rapport in the pass game with his receivers.
All right, I'm looking at his numbers. 12 for 22, 131 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception in game 1, quarterback rating of 53.4. That was a win over the Texans, 27-14. Then 26 of 42, 276, a touchdown and an interception, quarterback rating of 79.1. That was in the loss to the Bengals, 23-10. And then in the 13-3 win this Saturday over the Baltimore Ravens, 18 of 28, $161, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 91.5 quarterback rating. All right, Reg. So his quarterback rating for his first 3 games, 76.7, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 touchdown drives in 12 quarters. concern there, or is that the rust and you give them the benefit of the doubt?
Better be the rust, because that's a cause for concern. I mean, you're not going to win 2 touchdown drives every 12 times you have the football. Yeah, you're not going to win a lot of NFL games that way. So let's hope it is, again, everything that we've talked about, that with him, and also trying to build that rapport with this offense. And I think, against Baltimore, they ran the football better, right? Not as good as Baltimore did against the Browns, but the Browns ran the football better offensively. Would Chubb come out at 99 yards?
Yeah.
And I was surprised they didn't get Kareem Hunt a little bit more involved. However, again, you want to be able to put that in the win column. Like I said, I kind of felt good that when Lamar Jackson didn't play, had Jackson played, well, I got a feeling they would have needed more than the Browns and those 13 points to win the football game. That's how special Lamar Jackson can be. But they got the W, Kenny, and I guess as we do this on Sunday night, are they just by hanging on, they're still mathematically breathing yes to everything? They win out and everybody else loses out, basically, and that could get them in. So, it's good. It gives them something to play for with the New Orleans Saints coming in on next Sunday.
And I want to thank John Harbaugh and his coaching staff for really sucking the other night on Saturday with their play calls, that drive down there. It's fourth and hey, let's try and fool it. I thought Kevin Stefanski called that play. Let's try and fool everybody and give it to the fullback on 4th and 1 instead of kicking the field goal for an offensively challenged team. And there were some other clock management issues that I was like, okay, so it's not just Kevin Stefanski. Other coaches make boneheaded decisions like that as well. I thought he and his staff coached a horrible game the other night, and that benefited the Browns as well in a game that they needed, because now with Cincinnati beating Tampa today, they are a game behind the Bengals in the race for the AFC North. So I thought it was a horribly coached game by the Baltimore Ravens. And the reason I bring that up, Reg, is I don't want it to sound like all we do is pick on Stefanski. No, if there's a coach out there who I think makes poor decisions, bad play calls, horrible clock management, or all of the above in this situation, I'm going to say who that is. And I thought Harbaugh had an awful game the other night against the Browns.
Yeah, the play you just mentioned kind of made me furrow my brow a little bit too. And but Kenny, I'll say this: in my opinion, John Harbaugh and his staff are one of the top 5 coaching staffs in the NFL. And maybe that's why that made that a little bit more surprising. Some of the decisions they made with their play calling, but they're an excellent coaching staff, and anytime the Browns can beat them, and I get it. Like I said, the Browns, they weren't going to win putting 13 up if Lamar Jackson was the quarterback. Right. However, that wasn't the case. He wasn't there. He couldn't play. And the Browns were able to play the type of football game that got them the win. So, again, you just keep extending another week, right, Ken? So there's 3 football games left. And I'm watching these. I'm going to tell you what, the Browns, we expect them to beat New Orleans at home. We do, right. I would think. Now, I'll tell you, Kenny, 2 weeks from now, going into this Washington Commanders football team, I think they're pretty damn good. And so, watching them tonight, they are losing, trying to come back against the New York Football Giants. But, so, hey, listen, just keep extending it and take your shot. That's all you can do, because the one thing we know, you're not going to be able to have any damn thing to do with what the other clubs do. So, and Kenny, and watch it today. I watched the Detroit Lions and the New York Jets, and all I could think about for 3.5 hours was the Browns are in this position, as you and I have talked about, most specifically because of that total, complete disastrous meltdown they had against the New York Jets. Was that like week 2 or week 3? It was early in the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and it was a disaster, Red.
Terrible. Well, terrible. And I mean, there again, I'm going against my own. You can't do anything about it now, but I mean, that was the one. They had that football game won, the Browns, and completely jacked that whole thing up in blowing a 2-touchdown lead in what? In 3 minutes?
It's like when France scored 2 goals in the World Cup today in 90 seconds to tie it against Argentina.
Right.
I was like, holy cow. The Browns aren't the only ones, who can give up big plays and in this case, 2 goals in a matter of a short period of time. Argentina did that, but of course, Argentina came back and won. The Browns did not. And to your point, that could, if they win out, Reg, and finish 9-8 and miss the playoffs by 1 game, that's the game you'll go back to.
Yeah, everybody will be talking about that. Absolutely true. And again, if you want to say, well, probably in every team's NFL season, sure. I mean, there's going to be you're going to have, a stinker, if you will. But damn it, no, you can't give up a 2-touchdown lead in the final 3 minutes and lose that way. So if the Browns do come up short, that's going to be one that is just going to make you pound your head throughout the long rest of the winter and on into the spring, summer, and until the Browns start playing football again.
How much are the Browns? What's the best way to put this? I don't want to. Okay. Joe Woods, I think regardless of what happens, I fire his ass at the end of the season. I've seen enough of Joe Woods. I can't have another year where, hey, they start slow, but at the end of the year, they finish strong. So you have optimism, and then you go into the next season and they start slow again. Then they finish. No, I'm done with that. Okay. So I'm done with Joe Woods. I'm done with Mike Prefer. I want them both canned at the end of the season, because I'm wondering how much of the Browns benefited from Kyle Allen, Tyler Huntley. It'll be Andy Dalton this week, Taylor Heineke or Carson Wentz the following week, and then baby hands Pickett, Trubisky, or Rudolph that final week. I mean, is there a chance that they could buy into this if they finish 9-8 and the defense does a decent job, that they will keep Joe Woods irregardless of who played quarterback for some of these teams down the stretch?
Yeah, I don't think you got to worry about that, Ken. I kind of think the die has already been cast. And again,
I hope so.
Yeah, and I understand them not doing it, at this point in the season or even as of a couple of weeks ago. But, I think defensively, Kenny, you're going to see some changes on the Browns coaching staff. And I've had a couple conversations with people about that, and that's kind of where it's leading me. And that would start with Joe Woods. Now, as far as the special teams,
please tell me he's gone. Please,
yeah, no,
Michael.
I get you. No, I know, I get you, and I'm not trying. But what my point was, it is amazing how in just 17 games, how one moment can almost give a coach that's on a hot seat new life. 2 weeks ago, the Donovan Peoples-Jones punt return for a touchdown. Kenny, again, in some conversations I had, it's like that has given Prefer new life. Again, well, maybe he's starting to figure out, it's coming a little bit too late. I mean, to me, no, I'm sorry. I got to go big picture.
Yeah.
No, that was a terrific return. I think Peoples-Jones busted 3 or 4 tackles, but I think it was more Peoples-Jones' ability to get out of tackles than, anything that was set up return-wise conceptually. Just my thought on that. So, I don't think Woods is going to survive. I think a couple of his defensive, on that side of the ball may go with him. The Prefer thing, though, Kenny, again, like I said, man, that touchdown return for Peoples-Jones, it's like it's breathed new life into him now. I don't know. Now, I wouldn't let that. It's great. Yeah. Fantastic. It happened. Terrific. So now you got a guy who you feel like, okay, he could be a damn good punt returner going forward here. But I'm not going to let that take away a whole season of missteps and bad play on that side of the ball. Hell no, man. So what I'm saying, if it was me, Prefer would join some of those defensive coaches that got to go look for another job.
You know what Prefer's agent's going to do? He's going to remind Jimmy Haslam that they blocked the greatest kicker in the world, Justin Tucker, a field goal in the game too, right?
There you go.
Two out of the last 3 weeks, right?
The Peoples-Jones punt return and blocking the field goal attempt from, in my mind, the greatest field goal kicker we've seen in our generation in the National Football League, Justin Tucker. You're right. So add that one. So he's going to come out and shine off those 2 plays and try to keep his job.
Oh gosh, I hope not. Well, my response to that would be, what about your kicker? He duck hooked one. No, my God, was that awful? Cade York,
kicker you drafted. I don't know.
Thunderfoot or Blunderfoot, whatever you want to call him. He's had an up and down year, that's for sure. Cade York.
Has.
He won them one game, but there are a few others where he was a factor in them losing games. So again, there you go. I'll counter Prefer's punt return and blocked field goal with the job of his kicker missing extra points and field goals.
Touche. Rightfully so. Yeah.
All right, Reds, let's do this. We'll get a break in here on the R&R podcast powered by MGM Northfield Park on the Press Play Podcast Network. When we come back, Reg, they're 6-8, okay, with 3 games to play. And 3 very winnable games: Saints, Washington football team, I'll call them, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so we'll preview those 3 games down the stretch with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. But also, Reg, I want to know from you who you have down as most improved players this year for the Browns, and players who maybe are making a case for becoming key players for next year's team as they build for the future. So Michael and I will break that down when we continue here on the R&R podcast right after this.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tybus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
And welcome back to the R&R podcast powered by MGM Northfield Park. Northfield Park, your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of harness racing every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday evening with a 6 p.m. post time. Wager and win daily on top thoroughbred and harness tracks from around the world with action starting around noon. Plus, you can enter to play the free handicapping contest every Sunday for a chance to win cold, hard cash. How about $500? That's right. Registration begins at 11 a.m. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. All right, Michael Red Guy, let's play the schedule game one final time this year. What do you say? I know you love playing the schedule game. All right.
No, I do. You be still my heart.
All right, here we are, 6-8 after 14, 3 left. Home game against the Saints and Andy Dalton. Away game at Washington with Taylor Heineke or Carson Wentz at quarterback, and an away game at Pittsburgh, Pickett, Trubisky, or Rudolph at quarterback. Michael, is it possible that this team could finish 9-8 considering who they're playing the next 3 weeks and the quarterbacks they're facing, with Deshaun Watson countering those quarterbacks?
Yeah, the quarterbacks the Browns will face might be an equalizer, but unfortunately, Kenny, and I'm not doom and gloom guy, but I'm going to say 8-9, win 2 of the 3. I just mentioned it in the first segment. I think they're going to run into trouble in our nation's capital against the Washington Commanders, who, I think is a pretty solid football team. So if they can get it and prove me wrong, that would be a phenomenal road win to try maybe keep themselves alive. But I'm going to go with 8-9, Ken, and beat New Orleans, beat Pittsburgh, but lose at Washington.
See, with Deshaun Watson, the feeling that I had in my gut, my Butch Davis, yesterday before the game was, I looked at the matchup and I said, well, they're 9 what were the Ravens? 9-4 going into the game, right?
Yeah,
they're 9-4 for a reason. You're right. They find ways to win. It's in their DNA.
Yeah.
But I kept looking at Tyler Huntley and I'm thinking, I know he came in last year against him when Jackson got hurt and put up some decent numbers and whatnot, but I just kept looking at that going, you know what? Even in only his 3rd game, Deshaun Watson is still better than Tyler Huntley. And then John Harbaugh went out and decided not to give the ball to J.K. Dobbins in the red zone, and they wanted to throw the football, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, Tyler Huntley couldn't make the plays. So, I looked at that and I was, okay, my gut was right. My Butch Davis was right. And so I look at this and I just look at the quarterback play. Andy Dalton is terrible. Taylor Heineke, to me, is a journeyman, right? Mm-hmm. And Carson Wentz, up and down quarterback in his career. He's a backup now. Pickett, I'm not sold on, and he's been concussed a couple of times. Trubisky's a backup for a reason. Mason Rudolph, if he were to play. So I just think they will have a big edge in the quarterback position, surprisingly. But I'm like you. I can't see them winning all 3. Something along the lines of, a turnover or, big plays in one of those 3 games, Michael, right, is going to get them for a game. So I expect them to go 2-1 like you in these remaining 3 games and finish at 8-9 moving into next year. And with that in mind, Reg, which players do you believe to this point and maybe in these final 3 games can make an even bigger case for themselves as a key component of Kevin Stefanski's squad next season?
Well, I like the job. I do like the job that the rookie corner, Martin Emerson, has done this year. I think he's a young player, Kenny, that going into his 2nd year, I see him getting nothing but better. You hope that that's the exact same thing for Grant Newsome too, right? On that defensive side of the football, because, Lord knows they're going to have to make some overall improvements, as we talked about in the previous segment, on that side of the football. Again, I like Harrison Bryant. I don't know how much with, obviously, the Chief, David Njoku, is your guy there. But you know how it is. Again, you for whether it's with 12 personnel, meaning a running back and a couple of tight ends, or, the way the Browns like to play, hell, with 3 tight ends on the football field a lot. I think Bryant's got an opportunity to really step it up. And then I think this year that we've seen that Donovan Peoples-Jones, Kenny, is a legitimate, he's a 2. Everybody was worried about it. He's almost got 800 yards receiving, and now they finally did the right thing and got him returning punts now too, which that gives you an extra boost with him. So I think Peoples-Jones has had a terrific year as one of the Browns' younger players. So I'll go those 3. I got to get more out of Jed Wills.
Oh boy.
Got to get way more out of Kenny, you think maybe they just need to go ahead right now and move his butt over to the right side?
Without question, Michael. And I was going to ask you, bye, 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 bye. Who sang that? What boys band sang that song? Bye, 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 bye. Was that?
It wasn't. Yeah, you're right.
NSYNC
was it
Backstreet Boys?
Backstreet Boys, wasn't it?
That whoever sang that song? We're going to be singing that to Jack Conklin and Anthony Schwartz. Okay, bye, 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 for sure to those guys. So with Conklin out the door, Reg, yes, you move Jed Wills over to the right side, and with whatever draft pick you have, possibly, right? I got to look at which ones they have for the 2023 draft, or in free agency, or in a trade.
Yeah.
You go find somebody to protect the backside, the blind side of your $230 million quarterback, Deshaun Watson, because it ain't going to be Jed Wills if I'm in charge of that football team, because he's going to get him killed, because Jed Wills ain't no left tackle in the National Football League. I'm sorry. He's one of the biggest disappointments for me, this year, as well as since they've drafted him. So, that's definitely an area that has to be addressed this offseason, Michael.
Mm-hmm. To me, I'm real disappointed not wanting to play, Kenny, but I got to tell you, and I hate to say this about pro athletes, you and I have had this conversation many times before through all our years together. I think at times he just plays with no effort, man. No effort, no real, just hard-pressed desire that we need to see more out of you, and even more surprising that, from where he comes, too, because, this guy played for Nick Saban now, right? At Alabama, and a team that every year believes if you don't win the national championship, right, then you had a bad year. I'm not sure how the hell that Saban put up with that, if that's what he was doing during his time at Alabama. So, yeah, somebody's got to get to him and make him very understood. Look, we got to see a whole lot more out of you. Everything from the way you daily on the practice field, the way you prepare, and certainly the way you play, because it's just not good enough. So, yeah, that's one of the ones that and they got to get that linebacker situation cleared up, Ken. I know that the injury to Anthony Walker, hurts. Of course it does. There's got to be more. There's got to be more productive play from that unit, period, if this defense wants to take a step in the right direction.
There are people listening to this podcast right now, younger folks, saying, "You old farts, get your boy bands right." It was NSYNC who's saying bye, 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 bye. So we give credit to the group who made it popular, NSYNC, and we will play that for. Here's my list of NSYNC players. That's what I'm going to call them from now on.
Lay it on me.
These are the NSYNC players for the Browns: Anthony Schwartz, Jack Conklin, Jacob Phillips, Ronnie Harrison Jr., Taven Bryan, Chase Winovich, and bye to Jadeveon Clowney. I've had enough of it. He had a nice year last year, only 2 sacks this year. Yeah, he might draw attention and whatnot, but no, you need more than 2 sacks out of the guy opposite Myles Garrett if he's getting double and triple teamed at times. And so those are my NSYNC boys right there: Schwartz, Conklin, Phillips, Harrison Jr., Bryan, Winovich, and Clowney. Just off the top of my head, thinking out loud about that, Reg. Those guys are gone, and I'm trying to restock the shelves if I'm Andrew Berry and that front office.
Yeah, I can't quibble with any of that. You got a real good shot of being 100% there that none of those guys will be back. Now, you got to get more from Perrion Winfrey now. You got to get a lot more from him, right?
The only reason I wouldn't put him on the bye list.
He's a rookie. Yeah,
and they drafted him. They're going to give him another year. Of course they are.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to add him to your list. Now I'm just going to pick guys you must get more from. Jed Wills tops it. And absolutely. Then, Winfrey, because he was drafted by the organization. And again, for the 8 millionth time, a guy that I've given all kinds of kudos to in the last couple of years, but Andrew Berry did not roster build as well as he should have this year. and he needs to have a comeback offseason and Kenny comeback year next season as well. Because this roster, to me, all kinds of great kudos, heavy expectations. Do you feel that overall lived up in terms of the way he built it and what he put together as what was expected? I mean, I think he's got to get better. He's got to get better at it and find the pieces that are going to come in here without a shadow of a doubt, be they, as you said, whether it's free agents. Not much trading goes on in the NFL, but maybe you do it that way, and certainly with your draft. I mean,
I'm with you, yes.
Kenny, his drafts in the 3 years, I mean, hell, you can make a case that from a production standpoint, a guy who fell into his lap in the 6th round, Donovan Peoples-Jones, is the best one he's got.
Yeah, I'm looking back at the all 3 drafts right now, Michael. You ready for this? Here, we'll just run them down real quick, all right? 2020 draft. Jed Wills, Grant Delpit, Jordan Elliott, Jacob Phillips, Harrison Bryant, Nick Harris, Donovan Peoples-Jones, right? Maybe Nick Harris, he got hurt, so we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Yes, you got to give him. Yes, I agree.
All right. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, by far the best out of that group of rookies. 2021, Greg Newsome, JOK, Anthony Schwartz, James Hudson, Tommy Togiai, been a major disappointment. Tony Fields, Richard LeCount, Demetric Felton of that group so far. JOK, probably the best of that group
yes,
with
no
Greg
doubt.
Newsome as the number 2 spot. And then
correct.
This past season, no first or second round picks. So in the 3rd round, they went Martin Emerson Jr., Alex Wright, David Bell, then Perion Winfrey and Cade York in the 4th, Jerome Ford in the 5th, Michael Woods the 2nd in the 6th, Isaiah Thomas, Dawson Deaton. Okay, you got Martin Emerson out of that group, and that's about it, for me. So to your point, yes, Andrew Berry along with Jed Wills and some of the other guys you mentioned. It's a prove-it year next year for those guys, and you got to get more out of them on the field and off the field in that front office.
No question about it. So a couple of guys that we expect, I think, JOK, I really like him. I hope he's undersized, Ken, as we know. I hope the injury situation, having to play a position that he's not sized for in the NFL, that doesn't make it any easier. We know that. But yeah, let's hope a couple of these guys start an ascent. I don't believe Anthony Schwartz is going to be one of them. Just don't see that with this guy becoming an NFL wide receiver. I hope David Bell can. I like Bell. I liked him when he was at Purdue. And, so I listen, and I think he'll ascend. So to me, I think a lot of Browns fans started, oh my God, Well, I'll ride with Cooper and Peoples-Jones as your 1-2, and then David Bell as your 3. At least give him a shot, Ken, to be that, because I think the kid has got the goods to be able to be as he start second year to start to show that he can be a strong number 3 wide receiver for this offense.
Yeah, and let's give a little love to Barry for the Amari Cooper signing, right? He's been a major player for them this year. He's closing in on 1,000 yards. He's not 100%. He's still out there playing, and they need him out there. He leads them in touchdown receptions with 7. So that's one I'll give him credit for, in a trade. But you've got to do better in the draft, Andrew Berry. That's where, that's the lifeline of most NFL teams, and he's got to do better in that area. And it's going to be tougher now too, Reg, with all the draft picks that they've dealt away for Deshaun Watson. So, he's going to really have to come up with the gems in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th round, whatever pick they have, because they're not going to have a 1st round pick for the next few years.
So true. All right about that. So he and all of his scouting department, you just said it, they're going to have to find a way to hit some home runs without the draft picks that were, of course, moved on to acquire Deshaun Watson. So they got to have a good offseason. Andrew Berry and his staff, his scouting staff, and his front office staff that put this roster, they got to have a real good offseason. And, Kenny, I'm going to say probably at least they got to bring in here 3 guys that can come, and most notably on the defensive side of the ball. that could come in and play. And as you said, probably they're going to need another tackle too, right? To replace Conklin.
Yep.
So, you're going to have to get some starting caliber material in here, not just guys that add depth to your roster. You're going to have to get a few guys that can come in and be difference makers right away.
Reg, for me, the offensive line, the 2 guards are fine. Harris, you hope, comes back from the injury. He's your starting center. Who was the kid that came in to start that got hurt as well at center? That was playing pretty well now. Kosick, is it? Or
Posich.
Posich. Okay.
Posich.
Okay. Bring him back as a backup. I'm fine with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So the interior of the line is fine. It's the exterior, the bookends on the offensive line that need to be adjusted, remade, or completely replaced. And what I would do is I would start by moving Jed Wills over to the right side and then look for a left tackle. That would be one of my biggest moves this offseason if I'm Andrew Berry.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. We discussed that prior tonight. So, I mean, yes, do that. Get Wills off that left side. I just don't think he's tough enough and suited for it. So we'll see if maybe that's the mindset of not only Andrew Berry, but Stefanski and his coaching staff too.
All right, we'll see what the Browns do with their final home game of the season against the Saints. 4th game for Deshaun Watson. Browns at 6-8 going into these final 3 weeks. 3 very winnable games, in my opinion. We'll see if they get all 3. Michael and I think they'll get 2 out of the 3, finish 8-9. And Reg, we'll do this all over again next Sunday night for everybody out there to listen to on the Press Play Podcast Network and wherever podcasts are found.
Always look forward to it, Ken. We'll talk then.